Hello and welcome to another episode of the Low Code Campfire. This is episode number 217 for Friday, October 24, 2025. Today, one of the topics will be bridging systems, how to receive data from the outside world. Hopefully you can help out with that topic because that was one submitted in advance. I am Dale Warner, Head of Support for Plant and App, and this is an event that we do every Friday, 10 o'clock Central Time. It's an all skill levels gathering where we talk about Plant and App and the things that we're building with it. And we hope that you'll bring something to show, something that, and you'll be ready to help your fellow low coders. We record all of them, put them on YouTube, so youtube.com/plantandapp gets you all of the existing content plus our low code cafes as well, where we organize topics and do more of a presentation style. But this is meeting style, so we stop for a minute, say hello because we're a friendly group, and then we'll go around. Anything that you have that you want to talk about first, that's first call, and then we go around the anything submitted in advance and some other areas that we might get to, but after a while, after an hour or so, we go into our afterglow segment, turn off the recording, and enjoy each other for a little bit longer. So do engage with us, jump in, show and tell. Raise your hand if you must. You can submit questions and topics in advance using the support@plantandapp.com email address, and I'll be happy to add it to the agenda. Hello, one and all.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
So we have the one thing, and that's submitted from Don. I see Don's with us today, so we'll get to that in just a second, but we will stick with tradition and do first call first. Anybody come with something that you wanted to talk about?
Hi, Dale. Jerry here. Great to report. No problems, no issues. Everything's running fantastic. We're just having a really good time with the latest software and teaching dentists what's new and what's hot and how that goes. So thank you for everything we've done. Sorry I've been out for a couple of weeks, but it's just been that busy for us. You know, we have a saying, if we're talking, we're not doing. So I've been doing a lot more than talking lately. Uh, Not completely related to our show, but I have the luxury of going to Romania for my birthday on
Oh my.
Halloween and doing all the things that you would expect to do. And I am hoping that you or me or one of us could at least advise or update our good friend Bogdan and let him know that I'm going to be in his neighborhood all next week. And if it's at all possible, I sure would like to buy him lunch.
I can certainly relay that message. I'm a little bit
Thank you.
envious. You going to the castle? Um,
All of them, all the above. Yes, it's a
right.
Halloween fest, and I won't burn up the time on this call. We can do that in the afterglow if you like. But
Sure.
yes, I will be in Bucharest and other areas starting Tuesday for a week.
Good. Well, we got the team is in Bucharest, so I'll pass that message along and hopefully
Thank you.
something will come of that. Again, I'm a little bit envious.
Thank you. Uh, so back to a related question, and we'll make this quick so we can get on to the important programmers. I'm really having fun with ChatGPT right now and helping me with things. And per our topic today, ChatGPT has been awesome for helping me connect with such things as Avalara sales tax systems, various shipping systems such as USPS, FedEx, UPS, et cetera, et cetera. And most recently, I've rewritten all of my AuthNet, authorized.net interfaces with workflows and things like that, and just having a great time with it. So I'm looking forward to what we have to say today, and maybe offer up some consulting if anybody should need it.
Perfect. Yep. It is amazing what it knows how to do, and together with the power of low code, getting those hints and then making it happen is
I
very
can't encourage enough to our watchers out in the outside world who see this video at some time. Don't be afraid to ask ChatGPT a Plantain app question. It seems to be very aware of what we're doing, and it's become my new best friend.
excellent. All right, since then I'm going to go right on to our pre-lit log here. Don, this is your topic. Um, the question really is about how to receive data from the outside world. And maybe you can fill in. I asked you a few questions in the support ticket, but maybe you can fill in a little bit. But I'll just set the stage. Don has a client, wants to send him 15,000, oh, no, never mind, 190,000 records every night. And what's the best way to get the file and then what to go on with it. And while there's lots of things that I could point him to, I thought that this group particularly, I know some of you do big data and have already conquered some of these problems, so maybe you can provide some hints. So Don, maybe I set that up a little bit, and maybe you can tell us about any way about what your options are for receiving this data.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. And what you introduced here was just right. So yeah, and I did. I thought it was a small number, and it became a very large number, 190,000 records each night. I don't believe that there's. Well, first of all, we're talking about two different systems. Their system, the outside system, does not have an API that I can call to pull the information to me, which would be great, but they don't have that. They don't want to have it. So, but they do have mechanisms to push it out to me. They can call one of my APIs. So I told them, yeah, I can create an API for you, and I did, and I created a post API they would give me a string, and so I'm right now trying to get that information from them. What they want to do is they want to provide basically a CBS stream, although it won't be a comma, it'll be a vertical bar for the delimiter, but still. Um, they would probably do it in chunks because um, there's not a lot of data. There's a name, an address, and maybe 10 number strings. Hopefully, be able to convert that into numbers. But right now, they're all one giant string that they're sending me, and so that's what I'm currently looking at. I've already done something similar where I have a comma separated values file and pull data from it and then put it in there. But that file, first of all, has a header in it, a header row, and this data that they're sending me does not have a header row. So I have to check to see if the um, create a list from CSV allows me to put my own header row in there if it doesn't exist in the stream. Um, but that I don't right now I don't know if there's any other ways for them uh, to provide any of the information. They did a quick test like minutes before this call, and it failed. I don't know what's going on. I told them it's a post, and I gave them um, the input variable to use. I've done this with other people. It worked fine, but theirs didn't, so I have to go debug it. Um, I guess that's the premise for all of this is, anybody have any experience with huge amounts of data? I think what's going to happen is that they're going to give it to me in chunks. So I'm going to have multiple records. My plan was to just take in the chunk, one big string, drop it into a field in a SQL table, and then um, let them do that multiple times, and they're going to do that on a scheduled basis, and sometime later, uh, giving plenty of time for them to do that, to complete that transfer. Sometime later, I'll start processing it by going into those records and pulling the strings out, and then dumping them into an actual data table where all the data is separated into fields. So
Okay. So just a couple of things. And I think you're answering the fact that they're chunking it and that they don't. It doesn't sound like they're expecting an immediate answer to the processing that you have to do. They just want to get it to you.
Right, just get it to me. Just make sure that I'm getting it. And of course, I have to figure out from them that I've received every one of it. They're going to chunk it. Then, when I'm about to look at the stuff, do I have all of it?
Yep.
How do I know that? So I have to work with that on that. But yeah,
Yeah, and it would make sense to provide some kind of positive handshake. You know, they sent chunk one, your response back is, "Yep, I saved that," that kind of thing, um, so that they know that you've got it, the communication succeeded, that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, from what I hear, all that sounds very possible. I threw out some other things. It sounds like they want to do an API call, but um, FTP server is another possibility where they could drop that off someplace that you
right.
could pick it up and
And I've
do
done that with
code assignment.
another application where they copy a file to an FTP server, and then what I do is pull that file in and process it.
So I was hoping Ben would be here today and he would raise his hand, and he did. Hello,
Yep.
Ben.
Hello. You beat me to it though. Um, I was gonna say when it comes to files that are large in size, because I deal with this quite often, um, while you can do it with an API, as you said yourself, and you probably noticed, there is a limitation in how large the parameter strings you can pass to it are, which is going to force you to do something like what you were saying in breaking out that data in chunks, and it just makes the entire process a lot more complicated. Um, what I found is the easiest and most um, assured method is using FTP. So setting up an FTP server, having that file uploaded, and then once that, you know, the upload typically shouldn't take that long, even for large files, and then you're done and you just grab the file from whatever folder it dumped it into.
I 100% concur with that. That's exactly how I do it.
That sounds good. I was
The
just
other nice thing, just to give you a heads up, because it's something that I do, except for the fact that IMAP is not necessarily completely uh, reliable, but there are a lot of SFTP servers where you can set up actions after a file completes its upload. So, like in our case, we have an SFTP server where once they finish the upload, an email gets sent out with the name of the file, or the folder location, whatever, and it gets sent to an email address that the website watches. And then when that email comes in, I basically look at the subject line and I pull out the information from the body. And then from immediately, I know, okay, this file just came in. Now I can start processing and doing the import. Um, like I said, the only caveat to that is that unfortunately the IMAP action in Plantain app isn't 100% reliable, so sometimes it does skip emails. So you just have to kind of be aware of that and then, forcibly set the thing to reprocess. But that is one way where you can use an SFTP server's actions to kind of trigger the import on your website. So you don't have to necessarily say, okay, well, I'm doing it every night at 10 a.m. or 10 p.m. and tell your client, be sure the file is there before then, because if it's not, it won't get picked up. If you do it by something like an email trigger, it doesn't matter when they upload it. As soon as it's completed, your system will just be aware of it and then process it.
yeah, that's true.
Hey, Don, Jerry here. Everything Ben said is 100% on point with what I have experienced. Uh, in the beginning, I was at a point where we were actually sending the files through email, and then we were scraping the file off of the email using Planta App's email system. That worked pretty darn good, with the exception of, as Ben noted, that um, every now and then the email just wouldn't fire, and maybe it was our fault, maybe it was just the email system. Who knows? You know how email can be. It's not a perfect science by any sense. But once that data becomes secure, once there's things inside that data that the your client will never allow to go through an email file, we converted all of that to an SFTP to where that file gets uploaded to that SFTP by the client, and we are watching for that file to come with in our auto scheduler, our plant app automation. It's watching for that file. Now, yes, we did do a little better at handshaking in the fact that we know when those files are expected to come in. So it's not like they're just randomly showing up. It's almost like some point in time in the day or some point in time in the morning, we're expecting those files. And so we have another automation thing that's sniffing for those. And then when they finally land, we grab that file, we consume it, process it, do what we want to do with it, rename that file, copy it over to an archive folder, and we go on about our day. And I got to tell you, it works so smooth that I rarely have to touch it anymore. Rarely. And so that's in my opinion, the SFTP creates your security problems, or it solves your security problems, I should say, and it's fast. I mean, as being attested to, you can upload uh, depending on the type of file it is, but you can upload thousands and thousands of records in just minutes and then consume them pretty darn fast with our existing toolbox. I would love to use API endpoint and call an API, but I have never called an API, Ben. I'm asking you this as a question. I have never called any API in the world that has returned to me, you know, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of, we'll call them rows, but in a JSON string of some sort. So I can only assume that there is a limit on that somewhere. But Don, I would strictly go down the SFTP path if you can.
Yeah, just so you know, from my understanding, the sending of data is not limited. So you can have an API that sends a massive amount of data. It's the receiving of the data where the limits are put in place. Lots of, depending on how you're triggering the API, but let's just say you're doing it through, a server URL call. URLs
Yeah.
by just nature default usually to about a 2,000 character limit. So you have to chunk that data in order to get it all in. And if you start chunking data, then you're probably going to need multiple APIs. You'll have like one API where you say, I'm about to send data, and that API returns, let's say, an ID number for this batch. And then a second API call where you send the ID number and then that chunk of data. And you keep doing that. And then a third API that is, okay, close the batch, here's the ID number. So that way you can kind of control and know when it completes. But again, it makes it way more complicated because it's multiple APIs. You have to have some way of tracking these batch uploads, make sure that you received all of the items, so forth, so on. And even the client themselves, they have to utilize that data that's coming back to them and make sure that everything's going out correctly. Whereas if you just use FTP, it just kind of takes all of that out of the equation. Like you
Yes,
said,
100%.
you just log in with the username and password, you're secure, upload your file. Once it's done, process the file and move on. It's
That does seem
a
like
lot
it'd be a
simpler.
lot simpler all around. He's in the process. The other programmer on the other side is in the process of playing with this right now. He's trying the API. My API again, very simple. It's a post. It's got one input variable, and all it's doing is what do you call it? A create new entity, create new record in the entity. Um, and there's one field in the entity, which is the raw string that he's passing in called records. So I would expect that would work, but right now it is not working. I don't know what the issue is. So I've got to figure out how to debug that. So all of what you've said leads me to go back to him and say, hey, let's stop for a second. Can you give me can you use FTP? Can you send me a file instead of doing all this nonsense looping? And he may go for that, but I don't know what his capabilities are yet. So, but great great input. Thank you very much for that. I think it is smarter to do the FTP. I have done it before and it worked very smoothly. This seemed to be a different way of doing it. And he suggested API, and I knew I could provide it via Planet App, so I said yes. But now, as I listen to you, it sounds like I should go back and push a little bit on FTP.
So probably just a couple of things. Jerry started off this conversation saying what a great friend ChatGPT is, and I asked the question, how much can a DNN slash IIS system handle in terms of receiving? And there are definitely upward limits. You can configure limits that, for a post call, you can configure the limits that might even suit your needs, but there are limits, and so and just trying to do everything in one big gulp and you handling it sounds like a little bit fragile. So I definitely agree with the FTP direction we've been talking about. A long time ago, I did something very similar with FTP, and one of the techniques I used was to have the developer upload the file and then as a last step rename it. So I was always looking for files of a particular extension, and as it was uploading, it was some other extension. So it kind of solved the problem of worrying about getting a file that was incomplete. If they uploaded it and renamed it, then when I saw the file, I knew it was stable.
I was going to ask that same question because, again, it's a very large file. I think the current system with it, although it's formatted slightly differently, it's roughly the same, and there's 190,000 records in it, and it can export an Excel file, and that Excel file is 15 point some meg, so it's a pretty decent sized file. So with that, I was concerned that if my system was looking to see if that file existed, then it might be in the process of writing the file when I see that it existed. So I definitely want a mechanism that says it's done being uploaded.
And that's really the same. I mean, Ben was talking about using an email to tap you on the shoulder and saying you've received it, which is a great method too. It's just you do have to figure out some kind of an agreement on how I know it's done so that you don't get into trouble.
Right.
To your question about no header row, the create list from CSV action does support that. Um, without a header row, you'll get the values will come in like field 0, field 1, and so you can, if it's always a very stable layout, you can use that to you can just refer to them as field 1,
Okay. Right.
field 1, field 9, whatever, and you don't have to get more complex than that, although that's less friendly uh, from a development standpoint than working with them as names. So
But
just
that's doable with whatever create and update tokens is to move things, or rather create a new record to just say that it's field one, field two, field three. To move it in is fine. And then my ultimate table will have the fields that with names that make sense because I'll be using this data for numerous things. I'll be displaying it tabularly and geographically and that kind of stuff. So that sounds good.
yep. Um,
Wonderful. Thanks very much for all those suggestions. Very helpful. I've always wondered about I mean, right now he says he called the API via Postman. I don't know what Postman is, but he said he called it via Postman. And
Postman is a testing utility for testing API calls, actually.
perfect. Well, he tested it and he said that I sent him a success, which is true because all I've got is a step one, create the record by copying the input field into the the one column of the entity and sending him success. So I don't have any error processing. And for whatever reason, I do have two, he tried it twice, and I do have two records in there, but both times the field is blank. So he sent some data and I don't have it. And so I don't know what the issue is. I have to go debug it. But I'm going to ask him first before I debug it is to see if he could, save us all of this trouble of him building a loop, having to deal with it, and maybe he could just send me an FTP file, a file via FTP.
So I agree. I mean, changing tact is or changing tact. Oof, lost it. Is probably a better answer. I do want to point out that in APIs there's this variable raw input, which whatever other tokens you create, you raw input exists so that you can see whatever else they happen to send uh, in that API call. So you might, when you're debugging things like that, you might look at the raw input and throw that into a file, into a table somewhere.
Yeah. How do I didn't see that. How do I get to raw input?
Well, can you see my screen now?
Yes, I'm seeing your screen. I see category, language, and country, but
Right. So this hover here,
oh, I
uh,
see the question
uh,
mark. Yeah.
it says the entire input of the request is stored in the raw input token. So if you had an action that created a record and the value was raw input, the token raw input, it's there for you to use.
Is raw input also part of a post method?
It has nothing to do with it with the post method. Whatever method you're using to call an API, we take the information that's provided in it and put it into raw input. So
And so
it's
literally,
just a
I mean,
token.
I'm being I'm sorry, I'm being rather dense, I guess, but I mean, I put bracket raw input as the value to write into my table, into my
Yes.
field. Okay, got
Yep.
it.
It's just it is we create, for example, you have category here as an input parameter, and so you know that you can use bracket category bracket to get category out of the data.
Got it.
Well, we create this extra magic token called raw input that has everything. So
Got it. Got it.
whatever they're passing you, you can get that, and then that's the clue. It's you can. I think that's in JSON format. I'd have to actually do one, but whatever is in there, you can then kind of reverse engineer. They're not sending it in as category. They're sending it as something else, and now you maybe adjust your API to accommodate that, or you can just parse directly out of raw input.
Got it. Got
If
it.
it's,
I will give that a try.
but
Fantastic. Thank you.
yeah, that's kind of add on. Again, back to
Right.
SFTP is still the preferred method.
Right.
Good. What else do we have? I have a few things, but not a lot today. Here we go. Um, yeah, we had a client ask about uploading things on um, and actually this is a good topic because I was working in this area this week and learned something. I've been using single file uploads forever and learned something new this week. So I'll share it. Maybe that would be a dark corner. Why is this not loading? Somebody tell me if I'm still live.
Yeah, we can hear you and see you.
All right, thanks. All right, so I don't know what's going on with the community website. That's interesting. Um, but we seem to be having some downtime on it. All right.
I can get to it.
Oh, that's
I'm having an issue bringing it up. Oh, It was very slow, but it did.
All right. Well, maybe maybe more things going on the internet. If some can, some can't. That makes me feel it's not just me. All right. So here we go. Let's try Campfire. Okay. And I've got my test system here, so maybe this is as good a place to show this. So the thing that I learned this week is that I have a simple form where we have being able to say that you want to send a file. So you have a single file upload control, you have a send button, and uh, let's see, first of all, what does this thing do? The send button sends an email to me with the file as an attachment. So it's using the file ID. Anyway, there's this unpublished thing going on in the definition of the single file upload where you say you have a folder input mode and then you have an upload to folder. And so you can say, oh, I want to put it into the attached folder or the temp folder or wherever you want it to go. But there is there's this unselected option, double dash. Does anybody know that that has a special purpose? And it's just
Do tell.
Yeah,
all
I'm
right.
curious.
Here we go. I discovered that this week. If you don't specify the file that you upload is treated as a temporary file and deleted at the end of the action stack. So in all my Plantain App / DNN Sharp career, I've arranged, okay, they're uploading a file, I'm gonna do something with it, and then I have to engineer something to delete it when I'm done, or you put it into a temp folder and you delete out the temp folder when you're done. Well, if you use double dash or blank, it will exist for the duration of the upload, and then at the conclusion, it's deleted.
That's not a new thing that was changed at some point recently?
Well, I don't think so. I tested back to version 1.25. When I brought it up to this is part of some of other testing, or maybe 126, it doesn't matter. Brought it up to Bogdan, and he said, no, I was asking, what does that do? Why don't I have a file? It says I have a file, I don't have a file. He said, well, try and use it. And I did, and it works. So so I don't think it's new, although I didn't test it all the way back to history. But regardless, it's my intention now to document it in this way. So I have my single file upload. It's got nothing in the upload to folder. I have the send button, and the first thing I'm doing is I want to see what's here on the form. So I'm using my context to JSON array, putting that into something called tokens. And then I am using a send email to send it by file ID. So I'm attaching it to this email by file ID. This one I think is disabled. Yep, so we don't have to pay attention to that. And then I'm displaying an error message to say that it's sent and all the tokens so I can see what's there. So notice that I didn't specify anything having to do with temp. I'm going to click up upload a file. I'm going to pick a PDF, and when I hit send, we get all this stuff, and you can see that the path, for example, is temp. The relative URL is portal 0 temp. The absolute URL has this full file, but if I go and try to browse to this, to do it that way, it doesn't find the file because it's not there. It got deleted out. And if I go to my mail here, I have it here, and it did attach it. It got all my variables too. That was in it's part of the email, but here it is, my simple file. So that's its behavior. So that was a revelation to me. Brings me to another 1.28 topic. It's a little early yet, but we'll put it in the documentation. And it comes into in version 1.27 as well. Are you aware that there is a base 64 token that happens in a single file upload? This is just whatever file you're sending is sent in base 64 format. So all this, we had some people that were uploading huge files, and then in the forms, and then this base 64 token is getting created, and yet it has you got a huge file, and now you have an even larger base 64, and that was filling up memory and making it it was a capacity problem. The form was too heavy; it wouldn't work anymore. And so the way that they have resolved this issue, this was actually for a client that's trying to upload, again, huge files, trying to put them on S3. And so during the upload, it was creating this base 64 token. We've changed that to be a lazy load functionality. So base 64 still gets created if you ask for it, but it doesn't get created by default. So that's kind of different from every other, well, almost every other token that we have. So absolute URL gets created every time, whether you ask for it or not. Base 64 is only going to get created if you ask for it. Does that make any sense?
Yes, that's good. It kind of explains something I think I might have experienced in the past.
Most people, of course, aren't using this, but you could store for example, you could take a file that gets uploaded. You could take the base 64 and store it someplace. I've done this before with images, for example. Somebody's uploading an image. You get the base 64 of the image. You can put it into store it in your database, and then you can reverse that to redisplay the image. So it's, but most people don't deal with most forms don't deal with base 64, and there's just no reason to create this. So in the future, right, I think in late versions of 127, if you use this method of dumping the context onto the screen so you can see it, you'll see base 64, but it'll be a value of quote, quote, it'll be empty. In version 128, it'll have a static definition, something like content not displayed. It'll in angle brackets, so you can know that it exists, but it doesn't show it to you unless you actually use the base 64 token and assign it to something else, or do something with it. So that's another challenge for us to document these few places where there's lazy load, but it's all about being efficient in the most cases.
That's
While we're
very
on,
interesting, Dale. Very nice.
so while we're there, there's another lazy load that we're putting into version 1.28 as well, and that is in the area of entities. Let me see if I can demonstrate. I'm gonna just add a button so that I can demonstrate it. There's a read all users. It doesn't matter what we're reading all. Well, it does matter. Users is probably a bad one. Let's tell you what, I'm gonna do it in a workflow. So new workflow, no inputs. I'm gonna say read all books and put that into the books token. And then context to a JSON array and call it tokens. And then end. In our output, I'm going to output tokens. All right, so let's test this little guy. This is so when we do this, the normal purpose for reading an entity, you can get the count, and by default it returns a list, and most people just iterate through the list. But it also returns books JSON, which is all the records that you asked for in JSON format. And we're going to quit returning that as we're going to start doing that as a lazy load. So instead of seeing books JSON and all the books listed there, it will say uh, that same message, content not expanded or something like that. And so if you use the token, it'll work. It'll pull back the JSON and load it for you. But if you're not using it, it doesn't do it. So there's two spots for lazy load. I can tell you're all excited about that.
That's a smart way to handle it.
It is. It's just a little bit, we get very used to, or I have gotten used to context to JSON array returning everything that's in your context. And when we have these things that are lazy load, they aren't there unless you ask for them. So that's just something to be aware of, and we're going to be very explicit that it'll be a constant string there that tells you that something's there, but you can't see it without asking for it. All right. Moving on. I've mentioned in the past, and here we'll go take a look at this. This is a documentation change. I've mentioned that in version 1.28, if you've ever done a custom action, that the action needs to some retrofitting, and that you'll have to retrofit it and recompile it. So first of all, anybody on this call have a custom action where they've compiled a DLL? And if not, I'll just actually I had one, and I have worked through these steps, and this does it. So topic explains what you have to do, but essentially you're going to have to get a 1.28 environment that exists, that's set up. Maybe your development environment gets upgraded, and then you open your project and you have to make some changes attached to some different DLLs. And so this describes that process. So just to be aware that it's out there in case you do that kind of thing. And now I'm going to quit talking about my topics for a minute because Ben has a question about IMAP. So here it is on the chat, but I have a question regarding IMAP. If anything new is known, it's a question I asked before, but not sure if any new information available. Is there a way to make the IMAP action more reliable? So talking about deleting and recreating a trigger in order to get it to work. So there is new information, Ben, and the on a couple of things. And then, so first of all, we've been working on this in these last couple of weeks, trying to improve this action. And so I learned one thing that's new that might be useful to you. Part of the code of the IMAP action, the IMAP action talks to whatever your IMAP server is, for example, Google, and says, I'm out here in case and it forms a connection. So then if Google has an email for you, it uses that connection to send it to you. And it, so that all that was that's the normal IMAP functionality. We renew that connection every 9 minutes. And if you look in your logs, so your automation logs, you'll see every 9 minutes an entry for any jobs that use IMAP. That's when it goes and does its refresh. So what I suspect may be going wrong with the IMAP, that every now and then you don't get an email, that somebody sends you an email and you don't get it, is that if for any reason that connection is lost before we reestablish it, I mean, we're reestablishing it within the time frame so that the connection isn't expiring. But I'm just thinking in the world of the internet where things can disconnect, it may be that a disconnect has occurred unexpectedly, and then the email that came in during that time frame doesn't get picked up. We didn't get the notification, and then we reconnect, and then it goes back to working. So in my mind, it kind of explains the symptoms without me being a developer. Okay, so then our questions so far, comments. Thought I heard someone jumping in. So what we're doing, the triggers, the way that we were handling triggers, the creation of triggers wasn't terribly resilient. There were some things that were going wrong. Among them, if you started to read an email box that was huge and maybe going back for years, that it would choke on it and never succeed because it's trying to read all the email from all time, and it wasn't taking a break and it wasn't recording its progress. So if sooner or later, processing thousands of emails, it would choke and IIS reset would occur. And it would start over again. So you just get into this forever processing loop. We're being smarter about it and going to process smaller batches of emails. I think they're arriving at the moment at 10 emails at a time. It'll grab 10 and process them and update the marker of where it's read, and then get the next 10 and the next 10. And so it will, but it's updating the stamp of where it is so that it doesn't lose its place and will succeed. So now I think to the problem that you're referring to in the text, um, in your chat question, changing the trigger was also problematic, and it wouldn't reset its place so that if you set it back to go get back a day in order to find um, any emails that it missed, it will it would not reliably do that, and then you had to get into deleting and recreating the trigger. The reliability, you won't have to delete and recreate the trigger. So solve some of the problems, haven't solved all the problems.
Okay, sorry. That was a lot to process. So in which version is this somewhat resolved?
I think we're solving it in 1.27, but let me
Because
confirm it.
I'm in 126 right now, so my whole thing is at this point in time in 126, there is no way to kind of do this in a reliable fashion. It's still a manual intervention, correct?
Yes. Yep. Um, and I know you have challenges in being able to upgrade, but yeah, when you get to 127, you'll see some improvements in this area. Pretty sure it's 127, and then definitely in 128. But I'll confirm that. Send you an email separately. And then Don says the raw input reference is not in the help pop-up.
Yeah, I was watching you
Yeah,
as you
yeah.
were showing me the raw input, and you were hovering over a question mark, and you got a pop-up that gave an explanation that said, and you can always use raw input. I'm not seeing that. So this is the API,
On
and
the input parameters.
you've got input parameters. That's probably what it is. But when I then go to the actions and I create a new um, entity record, and then it says, okay, what do you want for this field? What do you want for this field? I type in bracket raw input, and it says it doesn't exist.
It does. Just save it and
Ignore
go.
that. Okay. And then as far as the what value I should put in for that token so my input parameter is called records. Just the word records is the input parameter.
Mm-hmm.
And so the action where I say create a new entity record, and it says, what do you want for this field? I just put bracket records and bracket. So he's
Yes.
calling in and it's not getting loaded in there. There's nothing in there. So I'm trying to figure out, what the problem is. He hasn't responded back to me yet, so I don't know, but at least that I don't know how does one test a post when you create a post API? I mean,
Well,
DNN has a
so
form. Yeah.
uh, so Postman will do that, and then you can also write on any plant and app system. You could add an action that would be a server request. And let's see, where is this? So you can say post, and so you could call your own API with an API of your own,
Oh,
built
okay.
to
So
test
you
it.
make a little workflow that tests
Yes,
the thing.
and
Got it.
and then in the data portion um, of the server request. So this is a server request action, and you'd call your own URL. Um, and then in the data portion, you'd pass the JSON that you want. In your case, you were saying,
Does it have to be JSON? Is that us expecting JSON? Is that the format, or do you
um,
want string?
oh, and that actually brings me, he's trying to send you JSON, right?
No, he's trying to send me a CSV, so just raw um, string data.
Okay. Um,
So it's
you,
vertical bar delimited. So, a number, a vertical bar, a name, a vertical bar, et cetera, new line, and then the next row.
yep.
So that's the data. So I would just, to test this, drop in his sample data right into your data field there, non-JSON, just the raw data that he's sending me. And I can test to see that I'm getting it.
Right. And then if you hover this, it'll this comment is relevant to you. So where it says for post and put methods, the data should be in the format of the content type header that you provide. So you're also expected to provide a content type. So if it's, and oftentimes it's JSON. So you would have a content type, as you see here, this hover is bad, but okay. You would have a content type application JSON, and that would go in a header here. So you're telling it, the headers are going to tell it what you're sending. We're doing a server request, so um, and anyway, for whatever that you're sending this CSV, you might have to discover what the right content type. So if we were sending JSON, then to make it match, you would send content type application JSON.
Right. He's definitely not
And whatever he's sending you, you're going to have to discover what the right content type to use for that is. Uh, anyway,
Okay.
just areas to play in, and again, you're
And since he's using Postman, maybe the smart thing for me to do is to go into Postman and try to figure it out from that, rather than building my own workflow and server request and doing it,
yep.
all inside here, insularly. Okay, cool. But the raw input field, just ignore the.
Ignore the warning that it doesn't exist. The IntelliSense is not perfect, and so it will. It's because you defined an input parameter called records. It will not worry about a token that it finds called records, but for whatever reason, it does not know about the raw input.
One
And
last
yet it,
question.
yeah,
Is in the action create new entity record where it says what value do you want to put in this field? Is that where I would just write, do I need to like put param colon and my name, my uh,
you want to provide the value of the token, so it would be
bracket records? Just
exactly.
like that. Yeah, that's what I've got. Okay.
So you could use bracket raw input to see what is actually being picked up by the API.
Yeah, I just created a new field in the entity called, raw, and I'm gonna drop in the raw input field when he calls it to see, if it's not showing up in records, what is showing up.
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool.
Yeah. All right.
If I could just say
Yeah,
one quick
please.
thing. Don, it was something that you said that perked my ears up with regards to the format of the data that you're receiving. You said it's delimited with a pipe character, and then I heard you say with a new line.
Yes.
Be extremely careful with APIs receiving data that have new lines in the received data. It is not, how do I put it? It's not a reliable method of sending the data. You should be using a delimiter character and not an actual new line, because new line is actually two characters and it's character 10 and 13, and lots of times depending on what is sending the data, um, it's not received very nicely either.
Got it.
So you
Got it.
might want to consider, commas and pipes or something, but some other single character so that the data that's being sent out is literally just one continuous stream and line of data.
That does make sense. What he's shown me for his, he gave me a few records to show me what it would look like, and of course he threw this in a Word doc, so it's quite possible that um, it is a new line. So I'll quiz him on that.
Yep. So yeah, it sounds like there are going to be a variety of headaches until you, I mean, and it's like still go back to the advice. If you can do the FTP server, you'll avoid all of this.
Right,
And
exactly.
and
Yeah, I'm
so how much pain do you want before you give up?
with the urgency of this, because of course everyone decided to wait till the last minute to ask me to join in on this. Yeah, it is the easiest, the easier the better. So yeah, I'm going to push for that, but I will set up the FTP server for him to use in anticipation of him saying, yeah, I could use FTP.
All right, so to bring this episode to a close, I will mention that on Wednesday I'm going to do a Low Code Cafe, our last Wednesday of the month, and it's going to be I'm going to do a dive into all the options that are available to you on listings. So that ought to be easy to fill an hour talking about listings, and so it, uh, you might find that that's content you already know, but we want to provide a foundation of kind of going into what listings can do. With that, happy low coding. We'll end this episode. If you are inclined, hang around for a little bit. We'll do our afterglow segment.